Thomas. We're going to talk about Deion first because he's an intriguing player because he's already started to become a little bit of a whipping boy with Notre Dame fans for some reason. And I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because of the way that's reported, things that I've said that maybe people are taking to mean something that I don't mean. People questioning his work ethic and does he love the game? And it's like, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is he was so much better than the high school competition he played against that when you think it's like, okay, I think I'm giving it my all. I think I'm doing this. I think I've done what I need to do to be great because I'm so much better than who I play against. And it's not till you get to that next level. And then you realize, wow, he's pretty raw. Deion is also a year younger than most kids in his grade. And I think it's way too early for people to be writing him off. And I've heard some people say, well, he was really bad in the spring game. He missed a catch. He missed a catch that he should have caught early in the game. But the reality is he'd have caught 2 touchdown passes if Drew Pine just doesn't whiff on 2 throws. One, he doesn't throw to him, and he should have. Would have been an easy touchdown. The other, he's open in between 3 guys, and he throws it at his feet. So I saw some encouraging things from Deion, and I saw things that say Deion's got to get better, right?
Sure.
But he's a guy with a lot of talent. And because of his unique size, 6'5", 207, he's not fast, but he's a vertical threat, if that makes sense. He's really athletic. I mean, you watch him on the basketball court and some of the dunks he has on the basketball court, you're like, this kid's got some explosiveness to him, right? He's a kid that, to me, forget I did my rant on his perception. Let's now talk about him as a player.
Yep.
They don't need him to be the Will Fuller sophomore breakout, the Equanimous St. Brown sophomore breakout. Do you know what they need him to be? They need him to be the sophomore version of Chase Claypool. If you remember when Chase in 2017 as a sophomore, should have played earlier in the year, didn't. But when he finally got in the rotation, he had some moments. He was the starting slot. I'm not saying that he's going to be that because that position's not open for Notre Dame. But, Chase had some games. He had 4 catches for 56 yards against Michigan State. You remember that really amazing back shoulder catch he had in that game? He comes out and he has 9 catches for 180 yards against Wake Forest. He had some quality moments that year and had 29 catches for 402 yards and a couple touchdowns. Didn't play against Georgia. He should have. Didn't play in the bowl game. If you remember, he got hurt. So that was really in like 11 games. If you look at that kind of production, if Deion Colzie can just have that kind of season, 25 to 35 catches, 400 plus yards. Chase only averaged 13.9 yards per catch and, 2, 3, 4 touchdowns. If he can just do that, it adds so much to this offense, Ryan, because he's the one receiver that's got the combination of size and girth and length. His catch radius is enormous that he all of a sudden gives Tyler Buckner a weapon that he doesn't have. And that includes Tobias Merriweather because Tobias is a different kind of receiver than Deion. So he is a bit of a unicorn on this roster. And that only adds to why it's important that Deion really step up and become again, doesn't need to be a breakout. Just have that sort of Chase Claypool progressing as a sophomore type of be a key part of the rotation. Give me 25, 35 catches. If he can be that, he adds a ton of value to this offense, Ryan.
Well, he's a guy where you want to talk about a quarterback's best friends. If he's shown that he is a consistent pass catcher, that size and that frame, I'm in a tough spot, Tyler, right? Like, let's get the ball out there and let's make him make a contested catch for us. Like, that's what he is as a football player for me, and I think that's what he can be. Brian, he's the most volatile player, which is why I think that Notre Dame fans do have that perception, right? Like, because let's be honest, if Deion hits his ceiling or close to it this year, he could be that sophomore breakout.
Sure.
Like, he's that talented.
He's capable of it. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Or he could be the 4th leading receiver, a part of your receiving crew, right? Like, there's a lot of volatility to how good he can be. But he, I think, right around near Lorenzo Styles, could be that guy where he could transform your outlook of this receiver core to the highest degree because, he can give you an element that you just don't really have. You're excited about Tobias Merriweather, but he's another guy that's going to be a true freshman, right? Like, you don't know exactly how ready he's going to be to play. We expect him to contribute. But, if Deion Colzie gives you that size, that springiness, that catch radius, that is a different element that you have on your offense right now, because Lorenzo Styles is kind of that 6'1" separator. Avery Davis is more that true slot type. You don't really have that guy. Braden Lindsey's kind of a guy that creates explosive plays, but he's kind of a smaller, compact frame. You don't have the 6'5" guy, right? And you've seen Notre Dame has traditionally had that guy in the boundary. They've usually had that type of player. So if Deion Colzie is able to unlock that, that could be the difference between being a good to really good pass receiving core and being being an elite one potentially. Right. I'm not sure that they have a chance to be a top 5-10 this year, but they can get darn
if
close
you only
if Deion
include
Colzie
receivers.
takes that step. Yes,
if you only correct.
Yes, not including Michael Mayer, because that's a completely different conversation. 100%. Right. But if Deion Colzie takes that step and is that guy that his talent says he can be, then they're in the conversation at that point, because he has all the talent in the world. It's just about beginning to tap into it. And we have obviously high expectations for him, but there is volatility with him, which makes it an interesting conversation, and one where he could be the surprise star of the year, or he could just be a guy that needs another year. Like, there's just so much volatility to it, but he has so much upside to the position.
And players develop differently. I mean, Miles Boykin put it to you like this. I'm pretty sure, I'm going to have to look at Miles' stats, but I'm pretty sure that Deion Colzie had about as much production as a true freshman than Miles had his first 2 years combined at Notre Dame. No, I'm wrong. Miles, as a freshman, played 0 snaps, and as a sophomore, redshirt freshman, had 6 catches for 81 yards, most of it in mop-up duty. So Deion is about a game away from passing Miles Boykin's production after 2 years. Right, guys develop at different ages. Chase Claypool is a true freshman, had like 5 catches for like 81 yards or something like that. Deion had 4 for 67. So it's like, sometimes it's like a guy is so talented that almost if he doesn't show it right away, that people get frustrated. Guys develop at different stages. Michael Floyd was so much better than Golden Tate when they were both freshmen. Michael as a freshman in 2008. Matter of fact, Michael Floyd was better as a freshman than Golden Tate was as a sophomore. Because if you go back and look at the 2008 season, up until the point that Michael Floyd got hurt, and the same thing was true in 2009, when Michael Floyd would go into a season healthy, he was always the #1 receiver. Golden Tate was #2. Golden didn't really start blowing up until Michael got hurt. If you go look at their production in the first 3 games before Michael got hurt, Michael was their most productive receiver. Same was true in 2008 when Michael was a freshman and Golden was a sophomore. And then Michael got hurt and was banged up, and Golden emerged and had the breakout season. That's not because Michael Floyd was necessarily better than Golden Tate. It's Michael Floyd was more advanced than Golden Tate. Sure. Golden Tate was a running back for a lot of his high school career. And that's kind of my point about Deion is if he doesn't emerge this year as the guy, it doesn't mean he's a bust or an underachiever or anything like that. It's everybody develops differently. But I do think he has to show something this year. I don't think I'm going to be confident predicting him to break out as a junior if he doesn't make a similar Chase Claypool sophomore type of leap. What is your thoughts on that aspect of it, Ryan?
You have to see progress. You absolutely do. And I know we've talked a lot about Tobias Merriweather getting in here, right? And like, hey, you're not the only tall guy anymore in the room, right? Like, let's go a little bit, right? A guy that's a little younger than you, that's going to be able to challenge you and is as talented as you are. So I agree. I think that there needs to be some progress. Like, this can't be a lost season for Deion Colzie. He has to show that he has taken a step forward, because we think he has better coaching this year, right? He has a guy like a Tobias Merriweather coming up behind him. He has to be a guy that is able to take those challenges and to tangibly turn that into upside on the field. So I agree with you, Brian. And the other thing about him is, I called him a safety blanket earlier. Why is that? Because a guy that big, that long, is always open. He's always open, man. You put it on the back shoulder, he's always open, right? And that brings such a different element to your passing attack. But I agree with you 100%. This can't just be the same as we saw from Deion last year, where like you saw it a couple times, but you couldn't depend on it, right? Because he was just kind of getting eased into the game. You need to see substantial growth. Exponential growth is what I like to see this year. From game 1 to game 12 or 13, whatever it ends up being, I want to see exponential growth. By the end of the season, I want to see a guy where now, if he wasn't a breakout sophomore player, he ended the year where it was kind of like Lorenzo Styles type of thing, right?
Right.
Lorenzo didn't play a ton, got eased into it, started making plays, and by the end of the year, he became that player where now you're like, oh, 2022, that's the breakout guy.
Right.
I want Deion Colzie to be that guy this time next spring, where you're like, he showed a lot last year, but now he's a dude this next year.